It's been 17 years, 17 long, agonizing years since the Buffalo Bills have made the playoffs. It's probably going to be 18 after this year. The first of our NFL previews for the season. Brendan Albert is here. I am Adrian Feggu. Hopefully you guys are in football mode. Training camp's right around the corner.
Hey guys, football season's right there. I mean, we got to start talking, football now to get you mentally prepared. So we're excited to kind of do a two-team approach here moving forward. Going to talk a little about the Bills and the Dolphins. Probably not necessarily the teams you think about really playoff threats, and rightfully so. But there's still two teams in the NFL, so we got to talk about them. Yeah, we're going to be covering all 32 teams over the summer.
Brendan's available on Sunday, so we'll be doing a lot of these on Sunday. But also we'll do one, we'll sprinkle in a couple during the week. We'll probably do the Jets this week because they stink and nobody really cares about them. But this is going to be a lot of fun. I've been doing these the last couple years, but I've been doing these solo. So it's great to have a partner in crime this time. And we start with the Bills. New coaching change. Sean McDermott into the fold, taking over for Rex Ryan, who disappointed, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That's what he was known for. Number 4 ranked defense when he came in, but the last 2 years during his tenure, the 19th ranked defense. So what the hell happened?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things when we look at coaches in the NFL. I mean, certainly they are a large profit of wins, and they're also a large point to be blamed when they're losing. So, it's certainly one of those things where it's not always the coach's fault. Now, when Rex came in, I mean, he had a unbelievable defensive front. He had Mario Williams when he was still healthy. He had a brand new Marcell Dareus. I mean, he had Hughes when Hughes was still young and productive. So he had a lot of guys who were more at their youth. The other thing we have to remember is, yeah, the Patriots are always good, of course. But you know what? The Jets still stunk, and the Dolphins were nowhere near as good. So, 4 games right there, that's going to help his average when he's not playing teams. Now, since then, Dolphins have, dramatically improved. So at least there's 2 games that's a little more difficult. And yes, the Jets still stink. But, this competition changed a little bit. So I don't want to give Rex too much fault. But certainly it's a cause for firing. If your big name to the game is, hey, I'm a defensive guy and your defense is getting worse, that's a fair reason to be canned.
Yeah, he ran this complex hybrid system which lacked structure. It was just terrible. I saw hold on, what was the quote I saw from Jerry Hughes? So he's excited about the coaching change. Here's what he says. It allows us to kind of play to our strengths. 4 guys coming off the ball, creating havoc, closing in that pocket, putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, rather than just allowing him to stand back there and pick us apart. What do you think about that quote?
I mean, it's fair. I mean, when you're running a 3-4 hybrid front defense, you're not necessarily always rushing 4. 90% of the times you probably are. But the thing is, Rex, he was able to kind of get success when your 3 defensive fronts was Jerry Hughes, Marcell Dareus, and Mario Williams. All 3 guys were, close to 10-plus sack guys right there. So if you get 25 sacks from your 3 down linemen, I mean, everything else is successful. But when those guys started to taper off, it didn't really seem like he was able really to adjust for the lack of production from those players, and that was a big reason he got canned.
Yeah, I love the whole culture change the Bills are going through right now. So the stories coming out, reports coming out from the training facility that Sean McDermott is cleaning house. No more video games. No more pool table. He is keeping the ping pong table around because it helps with hand-eye coordination, but you can see that McDermott is putting his fingerprints certainly on the team right away.
I mean, I don't love this. Honestly, I really don't.
I don't either. Let him have fun. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get this. I mean, the way I look at it is, and again, you and me, Adrian, we've never strapped on an NFL helmet. So let's kind of take that for a grain of salt. That said, the NFL is probably one of the most strenuous careers you can have. Everyone says, oh, it's so much fun. Yeah, it is. But any given day, you can have your career be ended or you can have your job taken. So to me, I think players and I think people are best when they're relaxed and at a calm mental mindset. So if it's video games, if it's ping pong, if it's whatever's going on, I think that helps kind of ease the tension. I mean, there's a reason when you talk about all these NFL guys about coaches, everyone raves about Rex, about how much they enjoyed playing for him, how much they like he was a player's coach. Maybe he wasn't necessarily a true head coach. Maybe he always was better as a defensive coordinator, which is completely fair. But I just have a hard time with these coaches who have their sticks so far up their ass. And, we just don't see the player flexibility anymore. I don't love this at all.
Yeah. Now, I think one of the reasons why Rex Ryan kind of failed, I think it's just how the game has evolved and changed. That ground and pound style. I mean, when the Jets were winning back 2010, getting to all those AFC championship games, obviously teams ran the ball a lot more. Now, last year, they were second in run pass ratio. They ran the second most in the NFL. 2 years ago, they were the only team that ran the ball more than they threw it. So you're seeing an era where teams are literally throwing the ball more than they run it, literally, because every team did so last year. So I think that was part of the problem with Rex, not being able to change with the times.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's one of those things when you look at it all across football, we're seeing more and more 3 receiver sets and less 2 back sets. So we're seeing more and more pass happy situations. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly fair, Adrian. And that kind of then becomes the question. This kind of brings us forward into what are the Bills today. It talks about Tyrod Taylor. When I'm looking at Tyrod, I mean, personally for me, I think he's probably a top 16 quarterback in the NFL, which to me means he's a guy you can win with if you have a really good defense and if you're in a situation where you're going to be able to run a lot of play action and get in winnable situations. Problem is he's not on a team where he can do that. I was really hoping that Tyrod somehow would have found his way down to Houston because that would have been an awesome situation for him.
That would be perfect, yeah.
Because he doesn't turn the ball over. Yeah, you know what? Maybe he doesn't throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. But you know what? There's only like 8 quarterbacks in the league who really can do that pretty consistently without turning the rock over. So I like Tyrod, but he's a top 16 quarterback. So then the question becomes, so if Tyrod's not the guy in Buffalo, and then who is this year? I mean, they drafted Nate Peterman, late round pick, which I thought was a nice pick for them. Signed TJ Yates, fine. And then they have Cardale Jones, who's got a freaking howitzer of an arm. But that's really all we know. So it's going to be a real interesting situation to see what happens at the quarterback position for the Bills this season.
That's a great point you make about being a quarterback on a great defensive team and not turning the ball over. And that's something that Tyrod Taylor does. I mean, only 6 interceptions last year. It's pretty incredible. He's limited as a passer, but he throws a great deep ball, I think, and obviously he has the threat with his legs. I believe he ranked as a top 10 quarterback in terms of rating. Is that correct?
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, again, but that goes back to him. He's one of those people, he can be a little bit of a Charlie checkdown sometimes. Maybe he doesn't always take the deep shot. Now, that said, we talk about, players he has on his offense. His best weapon is Sammy Watkins, and he missed 12 games in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So take away your only real vertical threat, and Robert Woods is your best offensive receiver. Yeah, you're going to be a Charlie checkdown because you just don't have a lot of weapons around you.
Yeah, I actually have him ranked 23rd, but top 16. I mean, that's fair too. It's not like far away. The way I do my rankings, I mean, Tyrod Taylor isn't far off from the 16th ranked guy. Probably can't see it, but that's where I got him.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, here's the thing. We talk about the Bills moving into this season. So with the draft this past year, they did a lot of trading down, and I think that was fair because, I mean, honestly, with what the Bills were doing, they were trying to just gain assets, gain more picks, because honestly, if they would have drafted a guy at, in the mid-teens like they originally were slated, it wasn't going to make them 5 more games, better this year. So get more picks. So I get that. They pretty much drafted 3 starters this season, with potentially 4 with Nate Peterman if he ends up being the starting quarterback for even a couple games here. They drafted White out of LSU. He's going to go ahead and start at corner, replacing Gilmore day 1. Zay Jones is going to walk right in and be the number 2 receiver. And if Sammy Watkins, if and when he gets hurt, he'll be the number 1 receiver right away because the Bills have nothing in the receiving core. And then they drafted Dion Dawkins, who's already been starting at right tackle and has potential playing right guard. But my favorite thing the Bills did was they added another first for next season. So the Bills potentially, they're probably going to be in that I would say 3 to 10 range as far as where they're picking next year. If they really like a quarterback at 1, they have 2 1s next year. They potentially could use that to move up, whether it's draft Sam Darnold or someone else. So the Bills did a good job at trading down, getting assets. They have a lot of starters. Problem is their team stinks. So just because you're a starter on the Bills doesn't mean you're a good player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they're that good of a team. Let's see. Are my rankings down there on the bottom, people? I think they are. I didn't rank them too high, that's for sure. They got them like 29th out of 32 teams. So we'll get into the predictions later in the show, though. All right, so let's move on to running backs. Obviously, LeSean McCoy getting another year older, but he did notch his 4th 1,200-plus yard season last year. He makes it wiggle out there, still can cut it back with the best of them. What are your thoughts on LeSean McCoy?
Oh, man, Shady's the man. I love Shady.
I know he's still in Philly. Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, that was bad. That was just bad. But, I mean, I love Shady. I'm a big LeSean McCoy fan. I mean, I still think I think ultimately he'll probably be I'll probably say a 5 to 10 running back in the NFL this season. He does a great job of catching the ball out of the backfield. The thing you always know about Shady is he's good for getting hurt 3 to 4 games a year. I mean, that's just pretty much.
Hamstrings are brittle.
Those hamstrings are brittle. It's pretty much a surefire bet, but I like LeSean a lot.
I have LeSean McCoy ranked number 5. There you go. So he up from last year, but we'll see. So he is So they've been the number 1 ranked rushing attack the last 2 seasons. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor helps in that sense as well. We'll see who steps up behind them, though, because they don't really have a lot of depth. Jonathan Williams was like 5th, 6th round pick from last year. They lost Gillislee to the Patriots. He was kind of underrated. So, what are your thoughts on the rest of the guys?
I mean, the rest of the guys, it's a big drop. I mean, for them, Gillislee was a nice kind of rotational back. Jonathan Williams, guy out of Arkansas, I believe. He's another one of those guys, rotation back. I can't remember the guy's name, but they drafted him out of Florida State. It's Jonathan Williams, I think is his.
They cut that kid, right?
Yeah, they cut him. I mean, he couldn't get his life together, and he came in and played pretty well when LeSean was out 2 seasons ago, I think it was. So the thing is the Bills, they're going to still be a run-first team because they don't have a lot of offensive threats. Their best offensive threat is still the running back, so keep toking him the ball. So I like LeSean a lot, and they have a pretty good offensive line. Not great, a solid offensive line, but there's not a lot of help over there. Expect a lot of 8-man boxes for Shady again this season.
Yeah, moving on to the wide receivers now. You kind of touched on it. It's Sammy, Watkins, and then basically nobody else, which is one of the reasons why I thought Jeremy Maclin would have been a perfect fit for the Bills, but obviously wound up going to your Ravens. So I'm sure you're happy about that. But Sammy Watkins, and then it's Zay Jones. They lost Robert Woods through free agency. Marquise Goodwin, their 3rd guy, gone as well. So Zay Jones, he's going to have to step it up because there's nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at Zay Jones, one of the things I wanted to do when I'm looking at all of our teams, I kind of circled someone who's a potential fantasy player, to look at. And Zay Jones is one of those guys. Now, that said, he's probably going to be someone you're going to take in the lower to 13 to your last rounds kind of thing. But Robert Woods left the team with 50 receptions and 70 targets last year. That's pretty fair a hope for Zay Jones to have as a rookie because really he's going to be walking right into that role. So, if you're drafting in your fantasy league and you're in rounds 13, 14, 15, and you're like, man, who can I get who might be able to just be a PPR guy, maybe not score a ton of touchdowns, but be able to get me, anywhere from 2 to 6 receptions on a game, Zay Jones could be that guy just because there's not a lot of, people who are going to take up targets. Again, assuming Sammy Watkins isn't going to be healthy again most of the season, like he hasn't been able to show he can be.
Yeah, I mean, for real, he didn't get the option on his 5th year because he can't stay healthy. So we'll see. That's huge moving forward. Philly Brown is their number 3 guy right now.
Yeah,
Andre Holmes, ew.
Yeah. It was bad. I mean, here's the thing. When Eric Decker and Jerry Maclin both came available, there was no secret that the Bills needed to go to those guys. But the truth is the Bills would have had to overpay for guys like that to go to places there, opposed to them going to a more win-now situation in Tennessee and in Baltimore. So obviously those NFL vets were like, yeah, we're going to go try to win, now and not necessarily go with a rotating door at quarterback and rotating door at receiver. So, yeah, I mean, I think Zay Jones is slated to be a 50 reception guy as a rookie, which is pretty rare.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the offensive line. Pretty good offensive line, I think, especially along the left side of the line. Cordy Glenn's always been kind of underrated at left tackle. Richie Incognito is a mauler at left guard. And as long as he can stay healthy, Eric Wood is a solid center. The right side of the line, we'll see how Dawkins fares. But the left side is definitely pretty potent.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, I think there's a good reason. Usually when you have a team to a really good offensive line as far as running the rock, they're usually really good inside to outside. So Richie Incognito, obviously he had his little off-the-field situation he dealt with in Miami. But, I mean, look, he was a Pro Bowler last year for a reason. Like, he didn't win the lottery. Yeah, he didn't win the lottery to get there. So, he's obviously great. Cody Glennon is one of the better left tackles in the NFL. A lot of people don't know about. Eric Wood's a very solid center. And then, your right tackle situations, Dion Dawkins probably going to be the starter there, and with Mr. Miller being the right guard. But there's going to be some type of situation with that right side of the line. But, hey, if you only have to worry about 2 of the 3 positions in the NFL on the offensive line, you're in a good spot.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line. Okay, so we know the tackles are really good. Kyle Williams, Marcell, Dareus. But let's talk about the D ends. All right, so Jerry Hughes is pretty good. Shaq Lawson entering year 2. Can he make a jump?
Shaq Lawson is the guy I circled on the Bills roster as on the hot seat. Shaq Lawson as a rookie last year wasn't even in the top 10 in sacks, and he was a 19th overall pick. That's a big concern. He played in 10 games, only had 13 tackles, and only 2 sacks. There's a big concern. And if you're going to a 4-3 defensive look, your ends have to get more than 2 sacks. It's just not acceptable. Shaq Lawson's a guy, if we don't see him make a big jump this year, we're going to see the Bills investing into potentially drafting a defensive end or signing a defensive end. Jerry Hughes isn't getting any younger in the tooth. And Shaq Lawson, if he's not developing, they're going to be looking for a new person there on the DN side.
Yeah, I don't know how old Jerry Hughes is now, but that's another guy, man. These guys that are just stuck in Buffalo are like underrated. But Jerry Hughes, the guy that's always been able to bend the edge and shit like that. So, all right, Lorenzo Alexander out of the linebacking core, 12.5 sacks. Where the hell did that come from? And what do you expect from him this year? I have no idea what to expect. Like, where did he come from?
Well, he came from Oakland, and he came with a 12.5 sacks because Shaq Lawson wasn't getting them. I mean, that's kind of like as simple as it is. It's like, hey, the sacks have to come from somewhere, and if our defensive end can't do it, well, I guess we're going to have to blitz our outside backer on his side. So, he picked up the slack there. Ideally, you don't want to have that situation happen again, because if it does, that obviously means Shaq Lawson still is underproducing. Yeah,
I'm with you. The other guy to talk about too, Reggie Ragland, injury plagued season. What do you have? A knee injury, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be the starter at middle linebacker, I would think. But Preston Brown's been the guy. I think Preston Brown's been a little underrated, but Reggie Ragland heading into year 2, his rookie season basically. What do you think about Reggie?
Well, Reggie Ragland is another one. He's kind of a question mark. I mean, one of the problems you get with Alabama players is there's so much physical pounding they take in their day-to-day when they're at Bama. So when they get to the NFL, their bodies are almost like a second-year vet in the NFL because they practice so darn hard and they play so darn hard. They're playing so long. They're always deep into now the national playoffs, so they're not a team only playing 10 games and they're done. They get 3 months to heal. So Reggie Ragland's a guy where he needs to have a good year. Essentially, he is one of those people who he could still potentially win Defensive Rookie of the Year. The nice thing is for him, usually middle linebackers, if you're playing in a 4-3 look, your middle backer should lead the team in tackles because, your D tackles are taking up the guards in the center, and you have Kyle Williams and Marcell Dareus. So he should have a good year. If he doesn't, going to be a little bit of a concern there. But you can't have your leading tackle be 34 years old in Alexander, how he was last year. That just can't happen if Buffalo wants to be successful.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made with Alabama and their players because that's why Reuben Foster fell. A little injury concerns with his shoulder, and now we're seeing a Reggie Ragland. So that's a good point you make.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore's another team who has a middle backer from Alabama, and Mosley was one of those guys where early on his career he was dealing with a lot of shoulder and knee situations. You look at the corners are a lot of guys, the safeties are a lot of guys. I mean, you look at Jari Reed a couple years ago, and then you look at even what the Redskins got. I mean, there's a reason the Redskins got Jonathan Allen so late because he had shoulder issues. I mean, we're seeing a growing trend here in Alabama. Sure, Alabama dominates everyone in college, but we're not really seeing these guys really be 100% healthy. Landon Collins, another guy, he came into the Giants, wasn't healthy right off the bat. It is a growing trend from Alabama players.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the secondary. Lost Stephon Gilmore via free agency to the Patriots, signed a huge deal in Foxborough. So now they're left with Ronald Darby entering his third year, had a great rookie season. I thought he kind of fell off a little bit last year. And you're going to have Tre'Davious White, a rookie, starting alongside of him. So it's going to be a young cornerback duo. We'll see how they fare. I think White, out of the cornerbacks in the first round, I think he's actually one of the ones that's ready to play right now. So I think he'll be okay. And Darby, I do like Darby as well.
Yeah, I mean, Darby's one of those guys that where he was drafted, I think it was a nice fit for him because he was always able to be the number 2 corner behind Gilmore, maybe kind of get a little more help safety over the top situation. So he was able to grow, but now he's all in. What I really like, I do like White a lot. I mean, LSU is one of those places that they do produce good corners. I mean, and when you draft a corner out of the SEC, they've probably played already against 3 or 4 NFL receivers, which is really, really special to have. The thing I really liked that Buffalo did was the Michael Hyde signing. I know they're going to play him a lot at the strong safety, but the great thing about him is when he was playing in Green Bay, he played so much man coverage, and that's something he's probably going to have to do, especially if you're going to go against a team like what the Dolphins like to do with a lot of 3 receiver sets, like the Patriots do a lot of 3 receiver sets. You can put Michael Hyde down in the slot, and he can play at that slot corner. It doesn't really change too much defensively. Michael Hyde was one of those guys I really liked the signing. I think he could be a guy down the line, maybe even a Pro Bowler, but he's definitely a good, solid player there for the Bills gotten him.
Yeah, he's really instinctive as a safety. And the other safety that they signed, Jordan Poyer, a guy that's really come out of nowhere. I mean, he was a 7th-round pick, and he started as a corner with the Eagles, and now he's moved to safety, and he's been okay. I mean, he's not great or anything, but it's going to be their other safety starting opposite of him. Now, other cornerbacks on the roster, they're lacking. There's nothing there. Sharice Wright, they got a kid in the second year, Kevon Seymour. Nothing else. I mean, that secondary, it's lacking a corner.
Yeah, and honestly, the Bills are not exactly in a situation where they're going to be able to beat you with coverage. They're going to have to beat you with pressure.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to, and this puts more pressure back on Shaq, Lawson, and Jerry Hughes to say, hey, we need the 2 of you to combine for at least 15 sacks. The 2 of them, you need to combine for 15 sacks, and we probably need to get another 10 sacks from the interior tackles. That would be a fantastic situation if they're sitting there with 20-plus sacks from their 4 down linemen. That's going to make all their corners look a lot better.
Yeah, if they don't pressure the quarterback, they're done. That secondary is going to get picked apart. It's bad. All right. Let's talk about hot seat players. I know that's something you wanted to talk about, so let's get into that. I think the obvious name there is Sammy Watkins, the wide receiver. I mean, you said it, 12 games missed the last 2 years, always the nagging injury, and really disappointing for Buffalo, considering in that draft, that was a draft that, all the guys, Odell Beckham, Kelvin Benjamin, you can just keep going down the line, and they traded it up.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, I mean, they traded up to draft him at 4. They drafted him really high. He got a $20 million deal to be part of the Buffalo Bills situation. In this past offseason, there were things coming out saying that he wanted to get fed the ball the way Julio Jones was. Well, that's all well and good, but you know what Julio Jones does? He gets on the football field, and Sammy Watkins couldn't be on the field. I mean, you can't be an elite receiver if you're missing 12 games the last 2 seasons, knowing that your team's not going to be in the playoffs. That's just inexcusable. So it didn't terribly surprise me when the Bills, declined his 5th-year option. So yeah, he's a fair hot seat player. Mine's still going to be with Shaq Lawson. I think that's still one I have. But both of those guys are in situations where they are potentially losing starting spots next year, if not potentially could be on new teams next year if they don't perform.
Yeah. All right. I don't know how else you want to do. You want to do like an underrated player and schedule prediction, and we'll get out of here? You want to do that?
Sure. Yeah, I would say my underrated player, I went Michael Hyde. I like him a lot. I really, really do like what the Bills did there. I think it was a nice value signing for them. And then the thing I like most about him is his versatility. He can play down at the nickel. He's a good tackler in space. He can play in the strong. If you want him to play the single high free safety, he can do that too. He's a good player all across. He's a jack of all trades, probably a master of none. My fantasy guide I circled was Zay Jones, again, just because there's nothing to stop him from being the number 2 receiver, and potentially nothing to stop him from being the number 1 receiver in Buffalo. I have the Bills finishing 5-11 this year.
Yeah, dude. Look at the schedule. It's rough. It's really, really rough. I had him at 4-12, and I had to ask you before the show. I'm like, are they going to really go 4-12? Like, is that really what they're going to do? And you're like, yeah, it's a tough schedule. So let me read it off for you guys. Okay, so it starts off pretty easy. You got the Jets at home. All right, I think we can pencil that as a W. But at Carolina, so Sean McDermott heads back to Charlotte. You got Denver at home, at Atlanta, at Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Oakland, at the Jets, New Orleans, at LA Chargers, at Kansas City, New England, Indianapolis, Miami, at New England, at Miami. That's rough.
Yeah, the AFC East got a pretty tough draw matching up with the AFC West and the NFC North and the NFC South. That's 3 of the better divisions in the National Football League. So that's a lot to ask. 4 to 5 wins, I think, is a fair thing, Adrian. I agree with you. And like I said, because the Bills, they got an extra 1 next year with the Chiefs, I could very realistically see the Bills trading their 2-1s potentially to move up in the draft and draft a quarterback if they really like one next year. I could very realistically see that happening.
For their sake, I would hope that, they kind of struggle with their schedule because they do need a quarterback. And some of these other teams right now, the Jets, the Browns, they are really, really bad. There's another team I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's 3 that the Niners are really bad too. So those 3 teams are just below everybody. Mm-hmm. And the Bills, they're not that bad, but they kind of need to be that bad if they want a quarterback. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, their schedule certainly makes them a worse record than probably their personnel does.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I think they're going to be a team in the probably top 5, maybe even if they get really lucky, top 10 range in the draft next season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they've gone 7-9, 8-8, I believe, last 2 years, or 8-8, 7-9, I think. So yeah, it's going to be down from there. All right, that pretty much wraps it up here. You got anything else you want to say?
That's it. I got in the Bills.
Word. All right, we're going to do the Dolphins next. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the Bills preview. I know not too, sexy teams, but that's what we're going to do. Hopefully, you guys enjoy these, and we'll be right back with the Dolphins preview. Take care.